Man, these folk got their hitty shit. No cap.
Nintendo is the mecca of video games. I think if you play video games as a hobby or if you just love gaming in general, every gamer always remembers playing their first Nintendo game. My first Nintendo game was Mario Kart on the Wii. It wasn't the best Mario Kart, but I had a fucking blast as a stupid kid. They are easily the most respected company in the gaming industry. They have one of the most loyal fan bases in gaming and in general. I mean, they stuck with them through the Wii U. And if you don't know, the Wii U was straight ass. Nintendo, unlike its competitors, is a gaming first company. It was built on video games. They don't sell laptops like Microsoft or dumb Blu-ray players like Sony. It's strictly video games, and that's what makes them so special. They've done it for 30 plus years and changed so many lives, impacted the gaming industry in ways other companies would wish. They've inspired so much creators that would go on to make awesome video games, but they're overrated. Now look, before I say anything else, I want to say this. I love Nintendo games. I might not like them as much as this guy.
Everyone! Jigglypuff! Pichu! Oh! Oh my god!
But I do love them. I just don't have the nostalgia like everyone else. I didn't grow up playing Nintendo games, but I've always appreciated them. So just know, this is coming from the heart and a person who really cares about them. I'm just tired of seeing the same bullshit. I'm outside the fence looking in.
Let me in! Let me in!
And who knows, all this could change in a year. This is just my current opinion on Nintendo, so you never know. Without further ado, let's get in this bitch. Nostalgia is a motherfucker. I'm all for nostalgia, but I don't like when it impacts criticisms. Look, I'm just gonna be straight up. Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time do not hold up in my opinion. They are definitely a product of their time and I can respect them for being revolutionary. But being revolutionary doesn't mean it's the best. Did they inspire other video games? Absolutely they did. But again, as a guy who does not look at Nintendo with rose-colored glasses, it's insane to me that these games show up on lists like top 10 video games ever made. Like, really? I played Mario 64 for the first time in 2020. I know it sounds crazy, but it was available on the Switch, so I got it. And other than its awesome music and solid level design, the game plays like dog shit. That camera is not good, and it looks like ass. There is no style. And the same could be said about Ocarina. But I get it, Nintendo's IPs hold so much weight on the gaming industry, especially on media outlets. There's a great website called Metacritic. See, what they do, it's basically Rotten Tomatoes for video games, and I don't really care that much about Metacritic, but trust me, some fanboys really care about Metacritic, but I don't. But it's a good place to go get critics' consensus on things, basically. And usually with critics and Metacritic in general, we get what's called the Nintendo bump. And that's when critics give Nintendo some leeway. Fans also give them this bump, but we'll talk about that later. Critics usually don't knock them as much as other games. Look, let me just give you an example. My favorite game of the last generation was God of War. It's what I personally want out of my video games. Its combat was fantastic. Its visuals looked unbelievable. But the thing that woves it all together was the story, all done in one continuous shot, by the way, with writing that rivals some of my favorite TV shows. The story takes you to so many places. It was great, and it currently sits at a 94, and rightfully so, because it's what AAA video games should do. Push the medium forward in storytelling and gameplay. 10 out of 10 in my books. Then we have Breath of the Wild. It's also a great game. It's a very calm, relaxing game about exploring a vast open world and doing it at your own pace and your own way. It has some generic things about it, like if I have to go to one of these fucking Ubisoft towers one more time, I'm gonna lose my shit. Its story is also not the best, but its moment-to-moment gameplay makes up for all of that. It's a great game, and I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. Cool, right? The Metacritic score is at a whopping 97, and that truly blows my mind. Breath of the Wild is a great game, but objectively, that story is not good. Like, at all. Its dialogue is terrible, and those are really big parts of a single player game. But I feel like Nintendo gets a pass for stuff like this. No one holds them to the same standards as other companies. If you would change the name of Breath of the Wild to Guy Climbs Some Stuff, do you truly believe that that game would have a 97 right now? And don't even get me started with Mario Odyssey. Jesus. Putting the media aside, Nintendo fans have some blame. Nintendo does a lot of things in their own way, and sometimes it could come off very arrogant, like the Mario All-Stars situation. If you don't know, Nintendo released a quote-unquote remastered version of the 3D Mario games, and when it was announced, I was excited that I could finally play these games fully remastered for the first time, especially Mario 64, which I've heard for a decade basically that it was great, so I was pumped. And it turns out they were just ports that I could play on the Switch. It was so disappointing for me. When you ask Nintendo fans like what's going on with them, they would just say, Nintendo's gonna Nintendo. That's a bullshit excuse. If any other company released a bunch of ports and charged full price, I just played the Mass Effect trilogy. If EA released the Mass Effect trilogy as just a bunch of ports, everybody would be going crazy. Hundreds of videos on YouTube would be flooding my recommended. But I don't see the same energy for Nintendo for some reason. And on top of that, the game was only available for 6 months. Like, what the fuck? And it still sold like 10 million copies. Start holding them accountable for their terrible fucking decisions. The only time I see criticism is when they don't release a Nintendo Direct, but then they release a Nintendo Direct and announce some Smash Brothers character at the end, and all is good in the world. And it irritates me. You guys have to start getting on them. There's a lot of problems, like the fact that their online services should be considered a war crime because how terrible it is. They're just awful. The fact that the third-party support is terrible on the Switch. These are issues that matter. Now look, I'm not saying to go out and abuse people. None of that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying vote with your wallet or be a little bit more vocal without being abusive. Because it's not looking good. I truly feel like Nintendo hasn't done anything innovative since the Wii. For a company that used to push the industry forward, Nintendo these last couple of years have felt like they've taken a step back, especially if you look at their competitors. With PlayStation releasing basically quadruple A quality titles, and Xbox having Game Pass and being a pioneer in cloud gaming, Nintendo is starting to look like that guy who's in his early 20s still hanging around with the high school seniors. And that's not cool. You might think that's cool, but trust me, it's not. You look like a fucking weirdo. Yes, they are doing great financially. Probably the best they've ever been. But as an enthusiast, and this is gonna sound corny as fuck, but also a student of the industry, it's a little disappointing. The fans and media need to separate themselves and start treating Nintendo like a normal company. In the great words of Kylo Ren,
let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Judge them as a company of the present and not the past. And I guarantee you, they will get better for people like me.